specifically for the week of December the 14th. We got some new blood on the podcast today. It's Kiyan Sobani. How's it going, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on, Coach. I appreciate you putting me in.
Coach? Wow, where did that come from, man? I don't know.
Uh,
I'm no Dwayne Casey. I don't have the tactical knowledge or the foresight or the knowledge of how to make substitutions to be called a coach. I am but a measly podcast host. But Dwayne Casey's coaching was on display, if you like that for a segue, tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers, the lowly Philadelphia 76ers, who with the loss now fall to, 1-24. They're like the opposite of the Golden State Warriors at this point.
yes, they are. It's a weird game, like halfway through the third quarter, like, okay, they're up by 20. This is great. We're gonna rest Lowry. We're gonna rest DeMar. The bench comes in and just totally just messes it all up because the Sixers cut it down to a 9-point lead, and then at that point you just kind of you get uneasy, not because you think you're going to lose, but it's a bit frustrating that you can't give these guys some rest. I mean, like halfway through the third, you're like, okay, you kind of stop watching the game, you watch it in the background because the game's done and dusted, and then you keep your eye on see what Norman Powell will do, or what if Ross can get anything going, or if Bebe's still playing strong. But I mean, it's just disappointing from that point of view that the bench couldn't get it done, and it's understandable also with without Carroll and Valanciunas. But that was the big story for me.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, credit to Dwayne Casey for the first time this season, I think he genuinely made an effort to rest his starters.
Yes.
I don't think he had any intention of playing Kyle Lowry or DeMar DeRozan in the fourth quarter. And the lead was, pretty comfortable, 17-18. And you saw Devlin and Jack Armstrong talk about, like this is a good time to rest, so on. And next thing you know, the transition defense falls off, and Philly's within 9, and Kyle Lowry's like reluctantly coming off the bench. You can just see that he just does not want to be part of this. And he comes in, like, makes 2 defensive plays, gets a couple of hoops. DeMar DeRozan jumps in, goes to the free throw line. I think he went to the free throw line like 14 times today.
Yeah.
So they ended up playing 34 minutes for DeRozan, 35 for Kyle Lowry. Probably not what Dwayne Casey had intended, especially with Indiana tomorrow.
Right.
What else was in this game? Bismack Biyombo essentially. What did you make of his defense against Okafor today? Okafor was 10 for 25, not a great percentage. Did have 14 rebounds, but Biyombo's performance I felt was quite adequate.
I thought it was good. I mean, I guess everything's relevant. If you compare Biyombo's defense to Bebe's defense in Okafor, on the limited time Bebe was posted up, he just didn't really contest the shots. He didn't get a hand up. So I think in relation to that, Biyombo obviously did a better job than Bebe did on defense. And I know you love Bebe, but he didn't have the best game. But that's kind of sidetracking here. I thought he played well. Had 9 rebounds. Played within his game. I think it was a classic Biyombo game. It was a very good game from him.
Yeah, this is his stat line basically, right? Like 6 points, about 7 or 8 rebounds. He had 9 tonight. Shooting a decent percentage, blowing his fair share layups. In this game, I think he only missed 1. Surprisingly, his fouls have been very limited. He only had 3 fouls in this game, guarding a guy like Okafor. So I think do you notice he's doing anything different of reducing the fouls, or it's just being more intelligent?
I don't know. That's something I actually didn't really notice until you pointed it out just now. So, but I think it's just maybe he's feeling more comfortable on the court. He's reading defense a bit better. I don't know if he's doing anything differently, but just being more solid.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything to do with verticality there. Maybe he's playing more vertical. Something that I haven't really kept an eye on, but it's an interesting stat to look out for.
Yeah, like we talk about Dwayne Casey sometimes not defining roles correctly. James Johnson probably is the biggest one, or Terrence Ross for that matter even. But with Biyombo, I think Casey's done a very good job of exactly telling Biyombo what his role on the team is. And I think that's helped him grow into that role. That's why you see him provide the necessary defense night in and night out. So credit to Casey for really like framing Biyombo in the right context so that he knows what he's doing. I was looking at his numbers, and I wrote this in the quick reaction as well. His PER is down. His field goal percentage is down from last year. But overall, if you compare his year to Charlotte last year and what he's doing for the Raptors, he's having overall a better season where he's contributing more to team goals, but his numbers are down. And Luis Scola was also was the main guy here for the Raptors. 10 for 14 for 22 points. I think it's the second time this year that he's managed to torch Philly. And my view here was that Philly, God bless them, but they're all young, fairly below average IQ players.
Yeah.
And a guy like Scola, who has all these like veteran moves, these little pump fakes, these little step ins and up and unders, he just feasts on indisciplined defensive players, and that's what Philly basically is.
Oh yeah, he was Luis Skula tonight. He was phenomenal. I think between him and DeMar, these guys really carry the team. I mean, he shot well from the floor. He took great shots. He was 10 and 14. Um, just yeah, I mean, it was just the defense, and I think you put it well. Like with the basketball IQ is, I think he's got the experience. And he knows where to be on the floor. He was hitting his shots. He looked great out there. Yeah, no question.
Well, so we're not gonna crap on Patrick Patterson and Terrence Ross because they had terrible games, but let's just leave it at that because I think we've dedicated enough podcast time to them over the last.
All right, just
weeks.
for those few seconds, that was too much time talking about them.
It's too much. I think we all know where they stand right now and how inconsistent they are. Ross was, what was he, like 0 for 6 in this game. Patrick Patterson was like 1 for 3, one rebound in 26 minutes. They're struggling. I think I don't know exactly what it is for Patterson. I think it's just missing shots, and Ross is Ross. I don't expect him to be good, and he's not good. So,
but I mean, your opinion of that changes game to game.
Not really. Let's rewind a game back against the Spurs. I think against the Spurs, Ross was he was 3 for 5 for 6 points.
Right.
It was a game the Spurs we're talking about here now is that. This was probably the most complete defensive game the Raptors have played all season long.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you like? What do you think the Raptors did here that made them win this game?
For this game in particular, the Sixers game?
No, the Spurs.
The Spurs game. Oh, I mean, like you put it, there was a defense. The defense was phenomenal. I think if you go back, and I mentioned in the quick reaction that night, if you went through the Raptors Republic Twitter feed, and just all the gifts that you posted of the defensive sets were phenomenal. Just the rotations were perfect. Everyone was on time. They were doubling in the right places.
Yeah.
Everything just looked solid defensively, and it was amazing because on the flip side they were also shooting really well against the Spurs, who at the time, or I don't know if they still are, I believe they were the best defensive team in the league.
Yeah.
So I mean, it started from the defense definitely, but also players were hitting their shots. Everything was in the flow of the offense, and it was just definitely the most complete game they played all year.
Yeah, it was the Raptors shot 58% against the Spurs, which is unheard of, and they held them to like 44.7% shooting. And yeah, the defense was unbelievable because the Spurs, who are a very patient offensive team, were forced to essentially use up 24 seconds of the shot clock every single time. Like all their shots came in with like 3 or 4 seconds left on the clock because the Raptors were so focused on their defense. Whatever the Spurs tried, they switched, they recovered, forcing the Spurs to execute 2 or even 3 different sets in the same possession, and really pressured the Spurs defense. And that says a lot when you force the Spurs into contested shots. Guys like LaMarcus Aldridge or Kawhi Leonard, who was battling illness, they were all actually flustered by what the Raptors threw at them defensively. So to me, this was like, wow, like if you can actually play this kind of defense, forget about over the course of 82 games, because of course in 82 games is going to be lapses, highs and lows, and nobody puts out 100% defensive effort. But if you put out this kind of effort in a playoff series or in fourth quarters where it matters, like I can see the Raptors winning games on the backs of defenses like this. Who was your standout player against the Spurs here?
That's tough. I mean, I'll put a couple players in that category. The most obvious choice is DeMar. I mean, and this is interesting because if we're talking about DeMar DeRozan, like in the past week, he's been putting together all-star numbers consistently, and everyone's talking about Kyle Lowry. No doubt he's been, in my mind, he's been the best point guard in the East, but DeRozan's been up there in terms of importance in the past week or so. He's just been incredible. So against the Spurs, he was 10 of 15. He had 28 points. And I really liked his shot selection. I would say if you go back to last year, beginning of this year.
Talk to me about the shot selection against the Spurs.
Yeah, and shot selection in the past, he's been known to take bad shots, and he's been getting better at taking higher percentage shots, and even the bad shots he takes, he seems to be making them, which is interesting. Yeah, you kind of joke about, Steph Curry doesn't have bad shots. He can shoot from anywhere, and it's a good shot. I'm not saying DeMar is on that level by any means, but it's interesting that he's taking good shots, but his bad shots are more makeable now because he's more confident. It's within the relative flow of the offense. So I think you put him as the guy who really sticks out against the Spurs. Lowry's is obviously another one. He had 19 points. And I got shit on a bit for giving Kojo an A in this game in the reaction, but uh, he only had 6 points, but his defense was fantastic. As you know, he just fights through every screen like a madman.
Mm.
But offensively, he also gave a lot of headaches to Ginobili.
Yeah.
And so I think like the Spurs, Ginobili got switched onto Kojo quite a few times that game, and he's just really good at just getting inside, kicking it out, playing good defense. So I would say those are the three players I'd say
Yeah.
really stood out for me against the
Yeah,
Spurs.
with Kojo, like I felt that like even though he had a poor shooting game no, a low scoring game, I
Right.
thought you could totally see how he was anticipating Tony Parker's movements. Having played with him over the last couple of seasons in San Antonio, he knew what Parker was up to on those screens, and he did really well to anticipate where Parker was going to go.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the big reasons why the Spurs actually, used up the first 10 or 12 seconds of the shot clock just trying to set up their play because Kojo was trying to like diffuse or kind of reset their play, knowing what the Spurs kind of run. So that to me was a thing that doesn't show up in the box score or even in advanced stats, but it's one of those things that it's just a feel for the game, knowing your opponent. He did really well there.
Exactly. 100% agreed.
Um, Best win of the season so far, I'd say. Was this better than OKC for you?
It was.
Why is
Yeah.
that?
OKC was impressive, but I think this one was the most complete game the Raptors have played.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. I think DeMar DeRozan's performance, 10 for 15. I mean, his shot selection, I have a different view for them. I think he took some really, really tough shots in the fourth quarter. I think he had one fade with LaMarcus Aldridge all over him, and then he had like two more hoops like in the paint with defenses all over him.
Sure. Yeah.
It's though like I always struggle. Like, is that a bad shot or is that just a shot a good player makes in crunch time? I'm always wrestling with that debate in my head. Is that like did he just take a shot that the defense wanted him to take, or is that the shot that he wanted to take because he was confident he was going to make it and he made it? It's that balance
Mm-hmm.
that I still haven't really decided on. That's why I asked the question. Like, what defines a bad shot for DeMar DeRozan? I don't think anybody has a good idea what that means. Analytics tells us, it's the long two, but I think it's a little more than that.
Right.
And I'm interested to see how he fares in fourth quarters from now, say till the All-Star break, and what his shot selection looks like, and how productive he is in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let's talk about Milwaukee a bit. We're kind of jumping around with the games here, but Milwaukee was first night of a back-to-back for Milwaukee, who beat Golden State the second night. Um, Milwaukee is one of those teams we've talked about them that had really high hopes coming into the season. A lot of hype with Greg Monroe and Vasquez and their core returning for another season. But the Raptors seem to have their number. Any idea why that is?
Um, I don't. It's a good question, and I mean, this kind of goes back to last year too, where against the Bucks, it was probably the most fun game of the season to just see the Raptors go off on them. But and it's interesting because on the flip side, like you mentioned, they go and just beat the Warriors, the only team that can do that this year so far. In relation to this game in particular, I think you had Patrick Patterson who had a really good game. And you gave some good minutes off the bench, and then you had DeMar who had 27, and that was again this whole week has been really good for DeMar. So his 27 points was huge, and then you had like just good solid contribution from around the team. I don't know if anyone else really stood out for me that game, but Kojo with 13 points.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like the Bucks were a little disappointing to me defensively because they have so much length on that roster with MCW, with Giannis, and with Middleton, and they're all good defenders.
yeah,
But somehow they weren't able to actually put any sort of pressure on DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was 5 for 16 in this game, but at the same time, you felt like he he was getting assists and he was getting rebounds and he was basically doing whatever he wanted, and especially DeMar DeRozan who was setting up people again. He had 27 points in this game, as you said. Patrick Patterson got some wide open looks. James Johnson had a decent game. And the Raptors ended up shooting like 49% in this game, which is not what you would expect against a very aggressive team like the Bucks, who really use their length to bother you. It just didn't seem to work for them. And anytime they bring up like anytime the Bucks try to like pressure the ball, I felt like the Raptors kind of handled it really well. They took it back a little bit, drove in, sucked their defense in, kicked it out really nicely. It was all those little things that they did that kind of negated the Bucks' length and their supposed defensive supremacy.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think it might have to do with youth a little bit. They're a young team. They're clearly talented, and they do have defensive-minded players. But that could be something that'll just, I'm sure they'll get better as with time goes on with this team as they develop. They got a great coach too.
Yeah. Yeah, but the next night they beat the Golden State Warriors. A funny story was that I actually put $10 on Boston beating Golden State the night before, and they almost did.
Wow.
They almost did. They took them to overtime, and then I was like, I got to make
They
my
were
10.
close. They were close.
Yeah, and the next time I'm like, the Bucks will do it again. So I put 10 more bucks, and I won my money back, and then some. I think the payout was like 4 times, so I won like 4 times of my money I bet. So it was
Good
all right,
for you.
man.
Good for you.
I'm not promoting gambling or anything, but I'm saying that you could kind of see that Golden State was there to be had with Klay Thompson being out, and it was he didn't play against Boston, and he struggled against Milwaukee. So it was. I'm not saying it was obvious, but it was on the cards. But your thoughts on how the Raptors played the Warriors?
I was really impressed with that game, and I think they got shafted with a few calls there, which are just obviously going to go in the Warriors' favor. But they had a really impressive game, and they were in it till the very end. And that was the game where that was kind of Bebe's breakout game, right?
Yeah.
And so Nogueira was phenomenal. Just those pick and rolls, the 2-man game with Lowry, his defense. I think the only player that really kind of stunk it up that game was DeRozan, who just had a really bad shooting night and took some bad shots. But that was one of the better games. I think at that point the Raptors, other than the Nets, were the closest team to have beaten them. So
yeah, like when you play a team like the Warriors, you're almost for you to win, you have to like make sure that or hope that like one of their other guys just has an off night, and the Bucks saw that with Steph Curry that night, and Klay Thompson wasn't on his game, so they got lucky there and they won the game. For the Raptors, every time they played the Warriors, twice they played them, both Klay Thompson and Steph Curry have gone off against them. So when you have their backcourt firing at that degree, the Raptors really didn't have a chance. And credit to them for sticking close. But moving away, the final game of the 4-0 week was, or the first game of the 4-0 week was the Lakers. And this was a Monday night game. Final time Kobe came to Toronto. He actually had a decent game, shot 50%, which is something quite rare for him. Had 21 points. But the Raptors, this was, they handled it fairly easily. The Lakers just don't have much to offer. What surprised me here was that when the Lakers were making their final run in the fourth quarter and trying to get back into the game, Byron Scott essentially benched Julius Randle, which made no sense to me, and D'Angelo Russell for that matter.
Yeah, and I mean, to me it was just like he didn't want to win that game for, I don't know if it was tanking reasons or whatever. It was a bit ridiculous to bench those two guys, even if you're going through a rebuild mode. You need to get those guys experience, let them play in the crunch. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a few games later, Kobe actually asked Scott not to go in the game, and Randall had a good closeout to that game, or was it Russell? But these guys need to play, and it was a bit bizarre to me that Scott didn't go to them late in the fourth, and maybe better for the Raptors that he didn't, but.
I don't think even if he had that, would have made much of a difference for the game. I mean, the Raptors just a much better. The Lakers are just not very good. It doesn't really matter what they do. They're going to lose their fair share of games. But they're tanking in plain sight, man. I mean, they're going for Ben Simmons, and knowing how rigged that lottery is, I would not be surprised if Simmons ends up with D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle over the next couple of years. So look forward to that NBA.
Yeah, and just since we're talking about this game, that was the game that I mean, I don't remember reading your thoughts on this game, but I assume you would have loved Terrence Ross that game because that was the one where him and Kobe were going back and forth, and Ross ended up having 22 points. He was 8 from 12, and it's those games that really just tease you and they give you hope.
Not
Like, whoa,
really.
this is what Ross could be, and then the next game he just totally shafts you.
Nah, see, that's I'm past that with Ross now, right? I mean, like this week is a perfect example. He had one game against the Lakers, 8 for 12, and which is surprising because Kobe usually eats him alive.
Yeah,
And then he followed it up with like mediocre games against the Spurs, Bucks, and obviously against the Sixers, but he wasn't anywhere close to it. I mean, let's see what he did against the Spurs. He was like what 3 for 5, so he wasn't terrible there. But then again, he stunk it up against Philadelphia and Milwaukee. He was poor as well. I'm not expecting Terrence Ross to score 22 points a game. I expect
right.
him to do like 12 and 5 and a couple of assists and some good defense. To me,
Yeah,
that
I
that
agree.
that
Yeah,
would actually justify his future contract.
yeah.
But I don't even think he's capable of that. There's like a GIF which I posted on the main Twitter site where at halftime of the LA game, he's yawning. He's actually yawning. And the funny part is that Leo Routens and Matt Devlin are giving him all kinds of praise for his first half performance, and then the camera pans on him, and there you see Terrence Ross actually yawning, and even they were like, "Ugh, he's a bit tired there, isn't he?"
That's classic Terrence Ross.
Yeah, so he doesn't tease me. He frustrates me more than he teases me
Sure.
at this point. So, but yeah, kudos to him. He had 8 for 12 going up against Kobe, who generally, even the last time they played in LA, Kobe had like a few possessions against him where he just embarrassed him on defense. So,
Right.
credit there to Ross. Overall, a pretty straightforward week for the Raptors. Three, I'd say, easy opponents and a big win against Spurs sets the Raptors up at 4-0 for the week. And if you check the old standings right now, the Raptors are second in the conference at 16-9, about half a game back of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we'll talk about that when we come back.
Get Goldfinger today.
When I started practicing law years ago, I noticed very quickly that the cards were stacked against innocent accident victims. That's not right. That's why my law firm is dedicated to working exclusively on behalf of those who need it the most. I'm Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. When you're in an accident, we can help you get the compensation you deserve. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Get Goldfinger today.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Rapcast. Kiyan joins the show today. Hey, Kiyan, how's it going? Finding the podcasting thing okay?
I am loving it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
loving it.
Hey, yeah, let's talk about the East for a second here. We talked about before the break that the Raptors were second in the conference. Funnily enough, only 2.5 games between the first seed Cleveland Cavaliers and the 8th seed Detroit Pistons, which is like when I clued into this, when I noticed this trend over the last couple of weeks, that there's not much of a difference between 2 and 8 really here. I think we can all safely assume that the Cavaliers will get the first seed once once Kyrie kicks in and all that. You kind of make that assumption. After that, it's really a crapshoot between second and essentially all the way down to like really 10th seed. Orlando is like 3.5 games back from Cleveland, and they're in 10th. So like when I look at this landscape in the Eastern Conference, the one thing that pops in my mind is that we talked about rest earlier, like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry needing rest. Man, it's almost like you can't afford to give them rest, because if the Raptors lose like 4 in a row or 3 in a row, they might find themselves out of the playoff picture, kind of like the Hawks are today at 14-11. They're actually out of the playoffs in the East.
Yeah, I think there's so many things are coming to my mind right now. But the first thing I look at when I look at the standings is that the East is just better. I mean, it's better than it was last year, and I mean, it's still a relatively small sample size. I'm sure things will even out as the season goes on, but the East has done really well against the West. And, if you look at it, right now, Utah is 10-11, one game under 500. They're 8th in the West. And, the Pistons are 14-11 and 8th in the East. So, it used to be the other way around the previous years. I mean, obviously things will change as the season progresses, but You're right. There's not much room for slippage. The East is better. Chicago looks great. So the people who are underneath the Raptors, looks rejuvenated with Paul George coming back. Miami's great. I mean, relative to what they were last year. So there's really not that much. There's not so many games on the schedule where you can be like, okay, well, this is a win. This is a win. I mean,
It's really
even
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn at
Yeah.
7-16, they've had a lot of close games against good opponents this year. So you can't even sleep on really too many teams at all.
Yeah,
You can't sleep on anyone.
yeah, they played the Clippers pretty tight a couple nights ago, and but yeah, I was gonna say Philly is probably the only easy out in the East. Other than that,
Yeah.
like if you look at the 11th seed Washington Wizards right now, they're 10-12, and they're always tough.
Yeah.
We already lost to the Knicks once, and they beat Portland last night in Portland. There's some really good teams in the East, and I almost feel that it's the high competitive nature of the East is helping the Raptors. I think generally there's a sense of comfort or malaise that kicks in, or a sense of easiness where you're in the East. Yeah, you kind of slot it into a fourth or fifth seed. You kind of coast through the season. This year there's no margin for error, and I think that keeps teams sharp, and it'll keep the Raptors sharp and motivated throughout this long 82 game season. And maybe in previous season that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, and here's something to kind of throw back at you. I want to know your thoughts on this. Assuming that the East is better, and by the time the season ends, the Raptors could presumably have a worse record than last year. Do you think, despite that, they're better than last year if they end up with the worst record, and that they'll do better than the playoffs?
Honestly, man, I'm at the point where I don't even judge it by the regular season. It's always about especially for the Raptors, given their first round exits, it's about how well you do in the postseason. So when I look at these teams like Chicago, Charlotte, Indiana, Miami, Boston, Detroit, Hawks, who would you rather face? Honestly, does it really matter? Like you could pick any of these teams and it would be a tough matchup in the playoffs. So to me, seeding is almost irrelevant, and home court to me is almost not that important, because the Raptors, even despite having home court, have blown enough series. So maybe
Right.
maybe being a road team is less pressure for the first two games. I don't know. To me, it's not even about the seed. It's not even about where you finish in the standings or how many wins you have. It's about how well are you playing heading into the playoffs, and how mentally prepared are you for the playoffs? Is your shit together? Are you guys going to choke? Are you able to handle the pressure? That's why I enjoy the Raptors having a lot of close games in the regular season, because I think it prepares them for the playoffs that much better. That's why I mentioned the competitive nature of the East results in close games. And if
Right.
you look at the Raptors, they've all their games have been pretty much fairly tight. And I think that prepares them better for the regular season. So to me, it's all about how far do you go in the playoffs. And so far, I like the fact that the East is tight. I think it helps the Raptors along with other teams, but certainly helps the Raptors prepare for the playoffs.
Right, and I 100% agree. I think you're bang on with the preparation. The Raptors, there's a chance they might not get to 48, 49 wins. I mean, there's a good chance they will, but I think it is all irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. If it prepares them better for the playoffs, then that's better.
Yeah. And I think we've known this through history. I mean, we were the third seed against the Nets, and we lost. We were a higher seed against the Wizards, and
Yeah.
we lost. So
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that seeding is irrelevant. It's about matchup and form heading into the playoffs. And last year when we headed to the playoffs, we were on very poor form. Like, we were not playing that well. Kyle Lowry
Right.
was hurt, and that's the other X factor here is injury. I think even though Kyle Lowry was technically available in the playoffs last season, I think we all knew that he wasn't 100%. His back was hurting. It's about how well are you prepared, and are you injury free. So it's all those factors that are so much more important than how many wins you have.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I worry about that this year, if that's going to factor in. I'm excited about fit Lowry, and I was hoping that Kojo would relieve Lowry of minutes, but it's also apparent to me that the Kojo-Lowry lineup is one of their better combinations on the court, and for that reason, it's not necessarily that Kojo is going to give Lowry rest, but they're going to share the court a lot. So, I don't know. It does bother me that we might run into that problem again this year, and I think there's some depth issues that concern me for sure.
Yeah, but if you look at the minutes played and being ready for the playoffs and so on, yeah, there are some depth issues. But in terms of minutes, like if you look at Paul George, the guy we're going to see tomorrow, I mean,
Yeah.
he's averaging 36.3 minutes a game. If you look at Miami's roster, Bosch is at what? He's just checking his numbers out, guys. Here, bear with me. Like he's at 33 minutes a game.
Mm.
So like a lot of these guys are actually playing close to 35 minutes a game, which is not that much different from DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. So maybe this minutes thing is a little overblown.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also about depth, right? I mean, the Raptors right now are, like as you said, they don't have the consistent offensive production off the bench, which puts a lot of pressure on their starters. And you see, I mean, Philly is a perfect example where Lowry and DeRozan had to come in and close out a game where really they should be resting on the bench.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
and
exactly.
it comes back down to the two guys that we promised not to talk about, Patrick Patterson and Terrence Ross, and those guys that need to be producing for the starters to actually be healthier for the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't disagree with anything you said, and I guess time will tell, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Let's quickly look ahead to what the week has in store for the Raptors. I think this week was 3 easy games and one tough one, and the Raptors were 4-0. But looking ahead, they start a 3-game road trip. This is after going 2-4 on their homestand. The homestand was started off with 2 losses to Denver and Golden State, then finished off with wins against LA, San Antonio, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. And now they go on a 3-game road trip, all against the cream of the East, if you will, I guess. Indiana on Monday, and then you got a 2-day break, and Charlotte on Thursday, and then Miami in Miami on Friday night. That's going to be a revenge mission there because that was the only time the Raptors actually got completely blown out in the game. And then they close off the week at home against a Sacramento Kingside, which they lost to in Sacramento. So there's a couple of revenge items on the agenda here. Let's start with Indiana. Paul George, obviously, Kiyan has had a bit of a rejuvenation after being moved to the 4.
Yeah, and that really he's blowing me away this year. I mean, it's not that just he's having a good comeback year. He's having like an MVP caliber year. He's averaging 27 and 8,
Yeah.
and he's just been phenomenal. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
But he's been good, and because of that, Indiana's looked much better as a whole. They're 13 and 9, and this is going to be the toughest matchup against Indiana in a couple years
Yeah.
that the Raptors have had.
Yeah, I think the first game was Indiana. Well, I think it was the second game of the season. It was a bit of a, you can't really read too much into that. But Indiana did get blown away by Detroit a couple nights ago. Georgia was 4 for 16 in that game. But without DeMar Carroll here, who is, by the way, out for an unknown period of time.
Yeah, that'll be tough. Yeah.
That's going to be a tough one. He would be guarding Paul George here, so that responsibility kind of falls to James Johnson / Terrence Ross. So that's obviously a key factor in this matchup.
Yeah, agreed. And it gets tricky because you can't just focus on him because Monta Ellis, provides a lot of scoring as well, and you got guys like George Hill, and it's definitely, like you said, it's going to rely a lot on how the wings play and how they guard George on the perimeter. They can't let him get blown by, and it's but if they repeat how they played defensively against San Antonio, I think they'll be fine for the most part.
Yeah. Would you make a starting lineup change for this game and put somebody else maybe on George other than Ross?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, the only player that really comes to mind is if you put James Johnson in and put him at the 4 maybe even, or just have him at the 3 and guard George. It's between James Johnson is the only other person who could do it really.
Yeah.
Unless you put Patterson there in some minutes off the bench.
I just don't think Terrence Ross has the size or the strength to handle George at the 4, and right, like I don't think Scola should be guarding Paul George because that to me is a big problem. So I think Dwayne Casey might have to switch things up a little bit, or at least if not make a starting lineup change, react early to what George is doing, because I think last time Scola went up against these nimble 4s, I think it was against Denver where Daryl Arthur essentially killed him.
Yeah.
I think similar situation might happen against Indiana where George might just take him off the dribble. So Dwayne Casey, I think, has to be ready with a different plan, or a plan B certainly.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I would be doubtful if he made a starting lineup change, although he might. But I'd be surprised if, although Terrence Ross starts at the 3, he will not get the majority of the minutes guarding Paul George.
No. I definitely agree there. Give me a call for this one.
I'm going to say Raps by 5.
Raps by 5. All right, I'll go with you on that one. I think that's the key matchup here.
It's a bold prediction. I don't know.
I mean, last time I was like pessimistic about the Spurs, and they ended up winning it. So here you go.
There you go.
Yeah. And then it's the Charlotte Hornets, who are the Hornets. I did not see this coming. The Hornets are fourth in the East at 14-9. They're tied with the Raptors in the loss column, so they're having an equally good season. Man, Nick Batum obviously has had a quite a significant impact there. Kemba Walker is having another Kemba Walker-ish season. Key matchup to kind of watch here, if you will, Kiyan.
I mean, you're gonna have to go with the Kemba Lowry matchup.
Yeah.
Because Kemba's definitely their biggest threat, and it's weird because I'm not used to seeing a team owned by Michael Jordan being good.
Yeah.
And so it's throwing me off here. But I know Batum hasn't made a huge impact, but he's been solid for them. And he had a dip in form for a couple seasons there, but he looks pretty solid for them. I mean, he's contributing a lot, and actually I think if I'm reading this correctly, he's doing 17 points per game.
Yeah, he is. And the one thing I remember last year, he had a bit of a hand injury, which meant his 3-point shooting was down. So this year he's got it back up to like 39%, which is where you expect him to be.
Right.
34 and a half minutes a game, 17 points, 4.7, 7 rebounds a game. He's your ultimate point forwardish player. And Andrew always talks about how much he loves Nick Batum and how this would be a perfect Raptor fit. And clearly you can see how much a guy like this it can help a team. And he's obviously doing that. He's basically doing everything there and doing it fairly efficiently. His shooting isn't the greatest. It's only at 43%. But really, his overall impact of the game on both sides, defensively, he's a pretty good player. He distributes the ball. He plays a lot of point forward. And I think he allows Kemba Walker to play off the ball a little bit more, which has resulted in him having being able to see a game a little bit better. Because sometimes when you're on the bench and you get to see somebody else handle the ball and see how they do it, you learn from it. I think Walker's benefiting from seeing Batum handle the ball and see how he operates. I think it's helped him as a player as well.
Right, and then you got some X factors there like Jeremy Lin. I mean, you kind of have no idea what kind of Jeremy Lin's going to show up to the game, but he does provide some energy off the bench, and I think that's something to look out for. But
well, what's to look out for is Tyler Hansbrough.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know how far. I think he's pretty far down the depth chart. I could be wrong.
He's only played 10 games all season. He's averaging 6 minutes a game, which is even less than what he did last year. Last year he was like 14 minutes. This year he's 6 minutes. Obviously he's not. Are you missing Tyler at all, Kiyan?
No, and I'm actually a big Hansbrough fan. I like him a lot.
Really? Why?
Like
Why are you a big Hansbrough fan?
Explain that. But I don't think the Raptors are necessarily missing him. I mean, sure, you could argue they're missing him now that Valanciunas is gone and he could provide some minutes, but I mean, for the most part, no. I don't know if you feel any differently, but
no. I think he's firmly behind like Marvin Williams there, who they like to play at the 4, and Frank Kaminsky, who's even ahead of him in the rotation. So I think he's definitely behind those guys. Yeah. So we probably won't see Hansbrough play here, but the Hornets, man, Jesus, man. I mean, you're right. I mean, Michael Jordan-led team, whether it be in Washington or the Charlotte Bobcats, the Charlotte Hornets, has just not been good, and they're like the 6th best defensive team in the league. The Raptors are 11. They're 7th in offense, so top 10 offense, top 10 defense. The Hornets are putting it together, man. The question is, were they going to be able to retain Nick Batum in the summer? What do you think?
Good question. I don't know, but here's something to note, unrelated to what you just asked me. Al Jefferson will most likely not play that game. So I think he's out for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So he won't be there, and I mean that's something the Raptors can take advantage of.
Call for this one.
I'm gonna go Raptors with a slim victory, like 2 or 3 points.
Yeah. See, and the Charlotte has not been kind to the Raptors in the
Exactly.
past.
That's something to factor in too. Yeah.
And I know Henderson isn't there anymore, but
Oh yeah, he was a killer.
he was a killer against DeMar
Yeah,
DeRozan. I think he was the number one reason that the Raptors lost a lot of. He was just used to
that's true.
torch DeRozan. He's not there, so that gives me some hope. But I still think that this is a tough place to play for the Raptors, and I want to call this an L.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
can't argue with you there. It's
All right.
possible.
So the next one is Miami. It's a back-to-back on Friday night. The Heat are again they're part of that scrunched up Eastern Conference. Miami's in sixth spot, 13-9. Again, tied with the Raptors in the loss column. The Raptors already lost by like 20 here in I think the fifth or sixth game of the season. Have you seen Miami much this year?
I have, and I got to say, I've been impressed with them. When you look at the squad before the season started, just on paper they look fantastic.
Yeah.
And but you never know how they're going to pan out because last year was a small sample size with Dragic coming in. He didn't, it wasn't a huge sample size, and he wasn't that great last year, but he's playing a bit better this year. And something key here is Dwayne Wade looks healthy, and he's playing well. He's leading the team in scoring, just over 18 points per game. You got Hassan Whiteside, who's going to that'll be a fun matchup actually with him and Biyombo.
Yeah.
See who can out rebound each other, and I think that'll be a lot of fun down low.
Yeah.
But they've impressed me, and Bosch is having another good year. He's a solid, consistent guy. Pretty much a walking double almost. He only has 8.6 rebounds, but this is going to be a tough game, and I think you've mentioned this before, that this is the only game the Raptors have been actually blown out this year was against Miami.
Because if you look at it, it sort of makes sense because they got Dwayne Wade, who if DeMar DeRozan guards, he'll make him work. They can put Luol Deng on DeMar DeRozan and kind of slow him down. And when DeRozan does get to the paint, they got Hassan Whiteside, who's an excellent shot blocker, who doesn't need to foul to contest shots. So they have all the pieces in place to make life difficult for a team like the Raptors, and they got Goran Dragic who can basically even out Kyle Lowry on any given night.
Yeah.
Even though Lowry I think is the better player, but he provides enough of a punch that he can make Lowry work. And they're just deep. Like Gerald Green, Chris Anderson, Winslow's playing well, Udonis Haslem. They're just a deep team, and much like the Raptors, how it doesn't really matter what the regular season record is. Miami's just totally in that boat because if they're clicking by the regular season ends and the playoffs come along, you can see them making a deep playoff run because they got the experience, they got the talent, and they got the role players to do that. So much like the Raptors, regular season is almost irrelevant. It's how well prepared you are for the playoffs.
Yeah, bang on. And this to me is going to be the toughest game in this upcoming week is this game against Miami. Like you said, they're deep, and they're not just deep in one position. Like they're spread out pretty even. They're solid. They got solid pieces on every area of the court. They have a really nice backcourt, with Whiteside and Bosch down low, and Bosch who can stretch the floor. He's hitting threes pretty well now. It's going to be a really tough game, and I think it's going to come down to a lot how the backcourt is going to play. I know that DeMar usually does well against Miami, but he's going to need other players in the backcourt to step up. He's going to need a good game from Kojo, and we're going to need a good Terrence Ross here. I don't know what we're calling him these days. I don't know. Every time I read something or we have a different name for him, but
yeah, it's TJ. TJ
is it TJ now? Okay, cool.
I think
TJ.
Blake,
We need a
Blake
big game
wants
from
to go
TJ.
with that one, yeah. Let's give me a call here for this one.
I'm calling a loss here.
Yeah, same thing. I gotta say a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, heart says win, but mind says
Exactly.
loss here. I think Miami is just a better team right now, and especially with the injuries to Valanciunas and Carroll, it's going to be a tough one.
Yep, agreed.
So before we talk about Sacramento to round off the week, is Boogie going to stay there past the deadline?
Boogie?
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he didn't stay. If you asked me that question before the season started, I wouldn't know. But now I'd say I think they have a pretty good-looking team as of right now. I don't know where they are in the standings. Let me do a quick check. They're doing okay. They're 9-15. But if you watch the last couple of games, Rondo's really come to life, and he's kind of looking like the old vintage Boston Celtics Rondo.
Mm-hmm.
And just highlight reels and just conducive to the flow of the offense. So
I'm
To answer
calling
your
a
question,
trade
I don't
here.
know, but I think
I'm calling a
if it's a
trade.
higher percentage of Boogie staying now than it was like maybe a couple months ago.
Yeah, it's gonna be a trade. I'm calling a
Yeah.
trade to Houston.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Houston's gonna do whatever is in their power to get rid of
They
Dwight
do it.
Howard,
Interesting.
and I think Boogie's their target man.
They would be a force if they pulled that off.
Yeah, and what this is just totally diverting here for a second. What's your
Yes.
opinion of the Houston Rockets? They're 12-12. They've been playing pretty bad basketball. Um, Over the last 10, they're 7-3, so they picked it up a little bit. Evaluate their championship credentials for me. Like this is like year 4 or 5 of their like, commitment to analytics and whatnot, and still they haven't really produced a Western Conference appearance. Uh, Analyze this franchise for me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Forgive me for saying this, but I don't see them as championship contenders at all this year.
Yeah.
I mean, even last year they look great, and it's not like you think they'd be better this year with their addition of Lawson,
Yeah.
but I don't know what's going on with them, man. And a lot of the reason is that Harden has been struggling this year, and so before Harden was just dominating.
Yeah.
And but like you said, they're recovering. They're back up to 500, and
Yeah. So
no,
sorry.
with this roster, I don't see a championship. They need to bring another piece in here.
Yeah, let me correct one. They didn't make the Western Conference Finals last year, and then they lost fairly easily.
Right.
But I just don't see this being a championship team. I think their core pieces are not like they need a lot around them. I don't think Dwight Howard is a guy that'll lead you to an NBA Finals. Like he can't be your best player on an NBA Finals on an NBA championship team.
No, definitely.
I think
100%
I think
yeah.
James Harden is just too bad of a defender and too inconsistent, I feel, an offensive player in the playoffs to be relied upon. I think they need a legit second scorer, and it's not like Chandler Parsons or Ty Lawson. They need a second guy who's legit there. And I think a guy like Boogie, if you get him in there, gives them that. Until they get that second legit scorer, I will never take them seriously as a championship team, and especially against when you have OKC and when you have San Antonio and Golden State there. I mean, they have no chance in that conference.
Yeah, I agree, and exactly. If you compare this roster to the other teams, even in the West, I mean, there's no. I mean, from their starting five is that they have so many weapons. From OKC has so many weapons. Golden State has so many weapons. San Antonio is just a machine, and Houston's just kind of like a notch below there for me.
Yeah. So Sacramento's 9-15, as you said. They actually face the Rockets on I think
okay.
I think tonight it is. Yeah, it is tonight. We're recording this on a Sunday. The Kings, man. So you see, Rajon Rondo is having a bit of a renaissance. Talk to me about Rondo. What are you seeing from him over the last couple of weeks?
I think he's come a long way, and he's starting to play within his game a bit. And I mean, if you compare him to the last season, where he basically left Boston and just completely destroyed the Mavericks from within, and just crippled them, and the Mavericks just discombobulated, and now Rondo's gone, and now he's in Sacramento, and it just looked like an interesting fit because you have Rondo who's kind of this guy who just destroyed a team, and now he's in Sacramento and alongside Rudy Gay and Cousins, and you kind of see all these egos meshing. But the last few games, what are they in the last?
I mean, the thing with him is that he's taking the most field goal attempts per game he has in his career.
That's interesting. I didn't see that.
Just because
That's
he's on a 1-year deal and he wants that big money, so he's got to prove himself. He's at 12.6 points per game. The surprising part about him is that he's taking more threes this year than he has over the last 2, and he's hitting them at a 37.5% clip, which to me is really, really good. I think this is a guy who has really worked on his three-point game, and it gives me a little hope for DeMar DeRozan because he's been a 25%, 26% shooter for the first 10 years of his career with Boston, and then over the last 2 seasons he's at 35%, and this year he's at 37.5%. That's a massive, massive jump for a guard to make this late in his career. And when he made that jump, I was like, maybe maybe there's hope for DeMar DeRozan, who's like at 28% right now or something. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, he's also shooting well just all over the floor. He's shooting 45%.
Yeah.
So although his field goal attempts are up, I mean, I don't know what his percentage was like the past few years, but his 45% is pretty good.
Yeah. No, he's always been at like 40% with the Celtics in a couple of years before he left. I know he had injuries and all that, but I'm just talking on his 3-point shooting. It gives me some hope for DeRozan.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And he's leading the team in assists. He has 11 assists per game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, by no means is Sacramento like a contender or anything, but they're impressive, and they're one of those teams that can really hurt you on any given night, regardless of where they are in the standings. So I'd be wary of this game. And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think last year this is one of those games the Raptors had on the schedule that most people thought, okay, this is a W, but they went into Sacramento and they just got completely destroyed that night.
Yeah, but this one's at home though, so it's
This
a
one's
little
at home.
different. Yeah, because we already played them away, so and lost that one pretty closely. So this one's at home. Give me a winner for this one. I'm gonna go with the Raps on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Raptors W here.
Yeah, Rudy Gay, by the way, return of Rudy Gay. Does he get booed? Did he get booed last year? I can't even remember.
I'm going to assume yes, but I don't have a proven answer for that. Sorry.
Rudy is at
I don't remember.
Rudy is at 46% for in his 2 years at Sacramento. He's actually a more efficient player than DeMar DeRozan in his 2 years at Sacramento, if you can believe that.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but there was a point, I don't know if it was last year or it must have been last year, where he kind of he said it publicly that, there must be a reason why there's these teams are doing better when I leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of have to look at myself in the mirror and adjust my game accordingly and take better shots. So I think he's matured as a player. And that's probably a part of the reason why he's playing better as well.
Maybe he's done that. Give me your call for this one. Is it a win?
It is a win.
All right. All right, I think that kind of wraps things up. A 4-0 week followed by, I think it's a 2-2 week is what we decided. Couple of tough games in here. Miami and Charlotte are tough. Indiana's tough, but doable. And then you have Sacramento, which should be a gimme at home. But hey, man, trap games are trap games, and this one does have a bit of a trap game written on it, only because it's like the first one back from a road trip, so you never know how those play out. But once again, if you enjoy the Raptors Republic podcast, make sure to check out the Friday podcast with Will and Blake. They'll review the games that happened, the first two games of the week, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks again for joining us, Kiyan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.